This is Zeta Prime. Be on high alert. The Decepticons are planning to reactivate the Energon Bridge. This would grant them access to an unstable energy source powerful enough to jeopardize the entire planet. Any Decepticon activity must be reported immediately, and all Decepticons are to be shot on sight. Zeta Prime out.
How boring! I've read more entertaining maintenance reports.
Alert! Alert! Weapons overheating! Let's go, Decepticon!
Zeta Prime is not that big when we actually meet him, thankfully. Even though that might have been a cool fight.
That was easy!
The others will likely be tougher. I suggest we proceed with caution.
Oh, I need to first thing. But yeah, this requires a little bit of backstory first.
This thing is impossible!
Keep looking, you fool! The answer is here somewhere!
See, at the time when this was going on, it was well into the comics. I don't remember the issue off the top of my head, nor the name of the issues, but at the time the Transformers were basically divided into 3 factions. Maybe 4 if you count the Dinobots, who were very on and off about whether they wanted to be part of the Autobots or not. But yeah, you had the Autobots under the revived Optimus Prime, who was now a Power Master, but I'll cover that story later. And then you had one What was that? Oh yeah.
Rockets!
Quickly, get to cover!
But yeah, you had one Decepticon faction under Ratbat, which was basically the entirely robotic Decepticons. And then we had a second Decepticon faction under Scorponok, which involved all the Headmasters, the Pretenders, the Power Masters, pretty much everyone that had any sort of connection to organics,
Choke on my exhaust!
or otherwise had just sided with them over Ratbat's pack.
Weapons overheated!
I don't remember what was the deal with Shockwave at the time, if he was actually under Ratbat or if he had been taken out by some other means. Or perhaps he was on Cybertron at the time, I can't be sure. But yeah, the Decepticons had been running a holiday resort on this artificial island they created. And yes, that is about as strange as it sounds. But yeah, they had built their own base, an artificial base which had an artificial tropical island on top of it. And they used this to basically change their image. This was one of Ratbat's plans. And they wanted to attract human beings, and jets like Starscream, Skywarp and Thundercracker would fly out and basically give the humans a free ride to their island to get a vacation.
Overheating!
And this had nothing to do with the Decepticons suddenly becoming nice.
Whining and find another way
Because because the idea was that when the idea was that once humans were around, the Autobots were much less likely to interfere, so they could unfold their plans in peace. And
Crude energon is highly
that actually worked, though of course the Autobots were more than a little suspicious.
Tighten your logic circuits, would you, Thundercracker? It can't be that bad.
So they sent some infiltrators over there in the guise of I don't remember the woman's name. Honestly, the humans in Transformers are very forgettable. It took me many days just to remember that Buster Witwicky was one of them. And yeah, there was a woman they sent along with Blaster as the undercover agent, since he could transform into a boombox, much like what Soundwave can. He's basically the sound wave of the Autobots, just not as cool, unfortunately. Even though they tried, they really tried. But yeah, they discovered that Buster with Wiki. I actually had to look him up to remember that he was the one here. He had been taken prisoner at some earlier point and was kept, I guess, as a hostage underground.
Best utilized in some other fashion.
And that the ultimate plan of Ratbat there had been to collect a couple of cassette transformers, Autobots specifically, that had been launched from Cybertron ages ago, but had been damaged through the flight and ended up stuck in their alternate modes at the bottom of the sea on Earth. And Ratbat and Starscream watched the records they kept with them, which was of a young Optimus Prime. Before he was Prime, I guess he was just Optimus at the time, and Megatron. Optimus had heard of something called the Underbase, and Megatron was following him, so he had also figured out the same thing. And it was kept in a monastery at the far reaches of Cybertron on a very trap-laden path. And they well, Optimus in his youth was, well, he was full of hubris, a bit like Megatron, even though he doesn't like to admit it.
Weapons overheated! Launching rockets!
But yeah.
Oh, like I can't dodge a rocket.
And well, if he had heard that the Underbase could grant knowledge and power, because the Underbase was basically a huge repository of knowledge. Pretty much every secret of the universe, the Transformers and their forefathers had discovered, all locked up in a single database, which had become the literal manifestation of knowledge is power. It created vast amounts of energy and had to be kept in a very secure storage location underground, where you would only gain access through a very special filter chamber that would show you just a tiniest glimpse of what was in there.
Will fall this day.
And well, Optimus actually got an audience to go in.
Is just on the far side of this canyon.
Now we have a mini boss fight. And what Optimus learned was basically that the Underbase was not the answer to his questions or problems. In fact, the Underbase shouldn't be in the control of any one Transformer, because it was way too much power for any one being. Though at the time, Megatron had gotten there and was invading the place, which was of course not good. If nothing was done, Megatron would get his hands on the Underbase and quite probably destroy himself and possibly much of Cybertron with him. So Optimus did the one thing he felt was right. Through the knowledge of the Underbase, he had figured out that it had a fail-safe. It could be launched into space. So he triggered the launch sequence, and yeah, the Underbase was lost to Cybertron for a long time.
Now target the aerial bots.
I'll show them some real flying.
Here comes another wave.
Now you're talking.
I like the banter
More
between
reinforcements?
Skywarp, Thundercracker, and
Combat
Starscream.
systems online.
You'll get some of the best lines coming up very soon.
Watch out for those rocket snipers!
Enough of this
I'll try
nonsense.
to keep quiet
we'll
for
bring this
them.
annoyance down from the inside. Fly in and target its power core. Initiating weapon.
Autobot vehicle approaching. Fire at will.
And yeah,
Doors and seal the ship. We'll trap them inside.
the Underbase
Orders,
continued to
Starscream.
travel through space after that,
Blasting you
and
with their power core.
still just exuding enormous amounts of power, much more than anything could contain really. And if it ever got too close to a planet, it would basically fry the atmosphere and cause it to become a fiery hellhole, killing all life. So it was not a nice thing. And of course, those 4 or 5 million years later, when
You're about to hear.
it was suddenly on a collision course with Earth, because, well, it's comics, why wouldn't it be?
Initiating weapon cooling.
And those two cassettes had basically figured that out in advance.
Warning.
Unbelievable! These Autobots are dumber than Skywarp!
Perhaps, Starscream. But have you considered an escape route for us?
Try the upper deck! Hurry!
They sealed it off!
Now's our chance! Fly through the hole!
Dumber than Skywarp? I'll show you, dumb Starscream!
You always do.
Oh, it's so silly, but I really love that those lines. I'll show you, dumb. You always do.